Hello and welcome back. In this short lecture, we're going to learn about configuring VNet to VNet connectivity with the help of VPN Gateway. So as you know that VPN Gateway also can be used for site-to-site VPN, also as your express route. But we're going to learn within this lecture with the lab VNet to VNet connectivity. And if you see here, I'm going to actually create everything very similar in a same subscription to different regions. Let's say I have a subscription called Paddy Maddy DXMS, and within this I have a region called East US, and within this East US, which is in the left side of your screen, I'm going to create a VNet called VNet1, and with the address space of 10 series. And also, before we introduce a VPN gateway, we need to create something called gateway subnet. As you know, in the previous lecture we talked about it. So we are going to create a gateway subnet, and also we are going to create a VPN gateway. So I'm going to name that VPN gateway as this. And while configuring this VPN gateway, I need to actually give the public IP. So I'm going to give the public IP. That's again just the by creating a new public IP. And later point, I'm also spinning one of the virtual machine within this region, which is in East US, with the IP address I'm going to get for this virtual machine called badge or OGEMS hyphen VM01 10.0.0.4. That's what I'm going to get the IP address. And whatever we have done here, similar settings, similar things, we're going to perform once again on a subscription, the same subscription, but this time to a different region. So if you see the left side, we have performed all these steps in the East US. Now we're going to perform in the West US. Like we create a new VNet, and we also give a different address space because we don't want to give the same address space and get into issues. So definitely it should be a different address space. So this time I'm going to choose 192.168.0.0/16 address space. And also I'm going to introduce the gateway subnet for my VPN gateway. That's the 192.168.1.0/24. And also I'm going to introduce this VPN gateway, and post to that, definitely a public IP also will be assigned for this VPN gateway. So post to that, I'm going to configure with a secret by making a connection within the VPN gateways in the two places with the same string or same value of my passcode, so that when they are trying to connect, they actually check for the same passcode, and if the passcode matching, it gets connected. So that's what we're gonna try. So I have already taken 3 minutes of your time. Let's jump into the quick demonstration, but I would request you to, if really needed, make a note so that you are not gonna confuse yourself by when we are trying to create the different components within the Azure portal. That being said, we'll try to create the required lab. So we start with the right side one, which is the West US2 specific. All the components we will be doing for the first 10 minutes or so, and then we follow and we would be creating for the left side of the East US. So let's jump into the Azure portal and go back, and you see here this is my subscription, and I can go ahead and create a resource group for the West region, and let me give a name, meaningful name, and West US2, and that's my resource group got created. As a next step, I'll be creating a VNet. For that, I can simply go ahead and create a new resource, or from there or directly from the VNet. Click on add, and I'll be choosing the West US2 region, and I'll be giving a meaningful name. And then in the IP subnet range, I'm going to choose 192.168.0.0/16 with the subnet of /24, which is 192.168.0.0/24 is the subnet which I'm going to choose here, and I gave the meaningful subnet name. And that's it. That's going to create the remaining things. I'm going to choose as a default for now, since it's a demo. And once the VNet has been created, as a next step, I have to create a virtual machine. That's what I'm planning. You see here, that's the address space and the subnet what we have here. And I'm going back to the virtual machine creation. So here I'll just fill as the same West US region with a virtual machine called here and the default things. But in the networking, if you see here, I'm going to choose the one which we have just created, the VNet, and public IP, yeah, definitely, and that's it. And the remaining things are default, which is ignorable in this case. So I'll just fast forward this video. So these are the steps. If you see here the summary, I'm actually creating a VNet. Within that VNet, this virtual machine. So let's create that virtual machine. So for what we have created, we created a resource group, we created a VNet, and we created now a virtual machine. So let's see what is the IP address that has assigned for this machine. So that's 192.168.0.4. So that's good. So if you go back to the resource group and you see this is just the virtual machine components has been there and there's nothing. So I'll just go to the virtual network, there's a VNet, and this is the time for me to see here this specific VNet is already associated with one of the network card also. You see here that's nothing but our computer which we have just created as a test. And as a next step, I'm going to create here the subnets. Under this subnet, there's something called gateway subnet. If you remember, we talked about the gateway subnet to be created as a first step to introduce the VPN gateway. So I'll just go ahead and choose 192.168.1.0/24 gateway subnet for my VPN gateways. So I'll just choose this and then I'll just accept the defaults in this case. So those are the reserved, and I'm not going to choose NAT gateway. I'm not going to choose now here security group or NSGs. There's no routing tables. If I have, I can configure here, but I'm just choosing the default configuration of the gateway subnet. So since I have the gateway subnet now, it's time for me to actually introduce the VPN gateway. So I'll just search for the virtual network gateway and I get this virtual network gateway. And within this, this is basically used, if you see here, VPN device can be used for VPN for the VNet or site-to-site configuration. All the locations, for example, if you wanted to connect to an express route, you can be used this. So this is the a software appliance that is very advanced configuration, which will take a close to 45 minutes of time to provision this network. So, and it's giving you 99.9% of SLA. So I'll just click on create to create this configuration. I have chosen my West US2 because I'm going to provision my virtual network gateway or VPN gateway in this location, and this is used for the VPN or express route. I can choose here if at all, if I'm trying to configure for my express route, I have a different SKUs that to be chosen based on your ISP provider, all that tie-ups. You know that you know what to be configured. And I'm not going to use the express route. Definitely it's going to be a VPN with the standard SKU, which is VPN GW1. If you want to know what are these, just click on that specific information and click learn and more. You have the complete table which talks about the generation wise, which is normally talks about the maximum average through output benchmarks. Let's say here 100 MB or 650 MB. So based on the configuration that you wanted, you can choose this. I would be marking this specific URL, or you can simply click on that so that you get that link whenever you want. And I'll choose the default one, which is the VPN gateway 1 SKU, and the generation would be the 1. But if I choose a different gateway SKU, I would get a different generation as I shown in the table earlier. So I'll just choose the SKU as the default. Now it's time for me to choose the virtual network. If at all I don't have any VNet which I have not yet created, then I can create here. But if you see here, we have already created as a second step the virtual network, so I can associate with that, which has the already a gateway IP. So you see here gateway subnet also coming up here, and which can't be changed because we have already associated. Now it's time for us to choose the public IP. So I'll giving here a meaningful name here, the public IP name, like my slash pip or maybe hyphen pip. That's a public IP information. And if I want to choose for the active mode, I can choose here, so that all the time both the tunnels will be connected from one tunnel to another tunnel all the time active. So if any virtual machine wants to communicate, it will go. But if you do not choose in the enable option, instead of that if you choose disable, if a machine try to establish a connection with this specific network VPN or VPN gateway, then only the connection will be established. And if you see here, I'll just give the public address name for my secondary public IP also, because I want higher availability. In that situation you can choose, otherwise you don't need to choose the additional configuration. And this is for BGP ASN configuration. If you have the BGP ASN specific ports, all that you can configure, but in our case it's just the public IP based communication for VNet to VNet what we are trying to do. So I'll just review and click on create button by reviewing this entire summary. So what would happen here? I have the two public IPs and I have disabled the BGP specific, and also when I click on create, this actually goes to a deployment state of 45 minutes. So you should be staying on the same page, or you can go back and come back to the VPN gateway specific appliance and see if it is successful. So this is already completed now because I have passed and resumed from there. So I can search simply for virtual network gateways, and you see here I have one network gateway which we just created. That's a part one. Now it's time for us to create into the East US. So East US, again, this might take another 8 minutes or so. So similar configuration. I have just created a resource group. Now I have to create a VNet within that region. So I'll just click on create VNet -RGEUS, and the VNet one maybe into East US location. So that is going to be my VNet, and I'm going to accept almost the default with the 10 series, but I'll give the subnet name as a proper subnet one maybe, and click on save. So this VNet which is in a East specific region going to be 10 series, right? And post to the creation of this, I should be able to even configure similar configuration like subnet. You see here the address space and subnets. So here I need to create again gateway subnet, which is 10.0.1./24, which I'm going to give that. So subnet gateway also created. Now it's time for us to create the virtual network gateway. So the similar steps that we have just created for West US region. So let's try to create here by click on add. So I have to fill the similar configuration information that we have filled, but this time it's going to be East US VNet 1 hyphen maybe a VPN gateway, and then this is going to be definitely East US region, and the VPN type would be the VPN, not the express route, which we talked earlier, like different standards, but we just stick to VPN and route based, not the policy based. And as we talked about SQ would be, we just go for standard one instead of going for the higher configuration, because I don't have anything much, I don't need to pay much even. So we talked about all of these, like if you change the SQ, even the generation also change as per the chart. Now it's time for us to choose the VNet which we just created in the East US, and it also showing our subnet, that's a gateway subnet which we created with the 10.0.1.0. So that has been successfully chosen. And now it's time for us to select the public IP. So I don't have a already existing public IP, so I'm going to choose as the create a new public IP. I'll give here a meaningful name like VNet.RG VNet 1 PIP, that's a public IP one. And if I choose the active again, I might have to go for the redundancy purpose. So this is where again I have to give the similar naming format, maybe like PIP2, so that I know that two different public IPs I'm giving here. And as we talked earlier, we can go for the BGP ASN also if really needed, but we don't have that configuration here. And just review and create. So what we have done so far, this is gonna, if you just click on this reviewing and if you just click on create, it's gonna create the virtual network gateway for you. So we are good with the configuration and it takes 45 minutes. So I'm gonna pause this recording, and once the 45 minutes is over, the deployment will be finished and I will resume from there. So now the deployment is completed. That's good. Let's have a look on VNet configuration or the VPN gateway, or let's go to virtual network gateways. Now you have two of them, one with the west, other one is with the east US. And as a next step, I should be verify, maybe start with the west US, and you see here connections. From the connections, you should be able to create a new connection from your west to east. So I'll just give a meaningful name here so that I know that I'm actually establishing a connection from west VPN gateway to east VPN gateway. And if you see here, this is my network gateway. That's a virtual network gateway. That's a VPN gateway. And here I need to choose my second virtual network gateway appliance. And also this is going to be my pre-shared key. So I'll just choose here, that's default because it has been already taken. That's what we are trying to configure. And the second one would be the VNet for your east location. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to establish a connection by using a VPN gateway from the connections from the west to east region. And the first connection is we are trying to establish with west US to here, maybe east example. So what would happen, it will try to connect with the public IP. It will dial to this public IP internally, and it will use this pre-shared key, that's a PSK. And if the key is correct, that means you need to configure here also this PSK key in the east region also for your VPN device. Then if it is matches, the connection will be established. So that's what it's going to happen in the backend. So let's try to give the proper naming here. That's what we are trying to give here. So I'll just give you a lengthy shared key so that it would be a very strong key. So something like, jack key maybe, and then you can click on OK. That's going to create a connection. This might take maybe a minute or so. And once the connection is created, what it does is it will try to dial the connection to this specific peer, and that's why status is unknown, if you see here. And the similar configuration would automatically appear. If you see, if you want to change the shade key, you can do that, and similar configuration would be appear on your east to west also. Let's jump into that and have a look on that. So if you see the data also, nothing data in and out. So what I'll do is I'll just click on east one now, and if I just go back to connections, and you see this has been already got available because we created there, and it's also populating here, and but the status is completely unknown. This might take some time. So before it takes some time, I'm actually creating a new connection to my east to west region. So I'll just give you proper name here, and as I told earlier also, the same VPN gateway device can be used for VNet or site-to-site or express route configuration. So the simple one software appliance device within Azure resource, it can be used for VNet to VNet peering, or maybe site-to-site IPsec, like your on-premises to your Azure or Azure to Azure, or even Express route also can be configured, right? So I will be choosing for this demo as VNet to VNet. As you know that we are trying to do it this time from the East US region and to West. So I'll just give here proper name to, that's West US, and I'll select this time to the West one. And here this is where the pre-shade key to be given. So I'll just give here a shade key. That's what we are trying to do. From the first is the East and then West. East to West is we are trying to connect. This is East and this is West, so it's trying to connect from here to here with this help of the shade key. So I'll just copy paste the key, same key that we used earlier. So I'll just paste it, same key, and click OK. This might take the connection configuration maybe 1 or 2 minutes or so. And what we have done, we have actually went to East US VPN device, and then from the connection we established in by clicking add new connection has been creating. So this might take a minute or so to completely create, and you see here it's creating connection. And after a few minutes the connection status from unknown to it will change the status. You see here it's created, and if I just refresh, I have the West one as well as the East one, and I can refresh in a minute or so, and this might take maybe 10-15 minutes to clearly establish the connection. And if you see here, the status also replicated in the two other region also, like West region also. And now it's time for me to wait for a minute, and you see if I refresh, it's showing as the connected. That means the connection is allowed. So if I have a resource within my West region and if it tried to connect to East region location, so what would happen in the between, you have the VPN device, virtual device. So these appliances will route the configuration here because it's already established the connection and showing as the connected. So now it's time for me to create maybe here within the East US. If you see here within this resource group, I do not have any virtual machine. Maybe it's time for me to create a virtual machine. So that virtual machine will use that virtual machine will have this VPN, this VNet, basically this VNet I will assign. That means this VNet specific IP series, and that VNet will have a VPN subnet. That's a subnet it has. So the subnet, by using that subnet gateway, it will route the traffic from VNet to East, from the East to West or West to East. The connection is already established, so the traffic will route. So let's see. You see here, if you just go to the connections, I have here status is connected. So it's time for me to go ahead and create the virtual machine. So let's go back to the virtual machines, and I have already a virtual machine which we created earlier for the West region, and which is in a stop state. In a minute or so I will be starting this, but for now I'm going to start and create a new virtual machine for East region. So this is going to be a fast forwarded mode. So I'll just give here a proper name of my virtual machine. Oops, I have to take out the underscore, and then the Windows server. I'll choose one of the Windows server, and I'll give here maybe username and password of a standard username like admin user or whatever it is, and in the disks is default, but in the networking I'm going to actually choose my East US specific VNet that we have earlier created, so that the subnet I'm going to get, the IP address range will be the same. So that's going to be 10 series/24, and that's it. So I'll just quickly fast forward rest of the part like management and advanced tags or the default. So this demo is focused on the networking component, so I'll just quickly fast forward and you can review it if you want it. And let's create the virtual machine. So once a virtual machine is created, I can show you maybe I'll just go ahead, since the VM is already created and it's running state. So now I have one in East US, other one is the West US. So maybe it's time for me to start even West US, since it takes some time. So I'll just start that virtual machine. And you see here I have 10 series of IP for my East US. That's good. And for my West, I have 192 series. That's good. So I'll just connect to these two virtual machines quickly. So I'll just say connect so that I can make the connection established with the RDP. So I'll just connect by entering user ID and password quickly, and I'll open a command prompt and show you the computer name as well as the IP config details. So you see here, that's my machine name and this is my IP address of the machine. Now similarly, I'm going to connect for my West region. So I'll just connect here for the West, and here also I'm gonna open up my command window with the IP config as well as the host name. And also not to mention that for any kind of ping or SMB protocol to be allowed between these two virtual machines, definitely you will have the operating system level firewall that to be enabled. So in my case, I'm going to make the exceptions for my two of the virtual machines for the SMB to be allowed, because these machines are in a work group at this point of time. So I'll just enable file and print services. Now I should be able to connect. So what I'm going to do is I'll just ping from 10 series IP, which is in here, and similarly I'm going to ping for 192 series. So I'm getting the IP address. Let's try to open maybe 192 series SMB port with $C or something like that. So I'm able to open, and let's see if I can create a folder maybe in my 192 series machine. Let's say this could be a VNet specific demo or some folder, and then that folder is getting created in the left side, if you see here within this series, and that's how it's going to work. So the connection is established and the communication is we are able to successfully establish. I hope this is very useful for you. Let me go ahead and show you what we have done so far. So we create a virtual machine in East US and one in West US, and two different VNets and two different virtual VPN gateway devices that we have created. So this one in the West, one in the East, and we established a connection with the shared connection string and established the connection. Both were connected state. That's how it's actually traffic is routing or traffic is going within these. And if you see the network traffic also going through these networks within this with the help of your virtual network gateways. I hope this lecture is useful for you. Thank you for watching this. Please take a minute to rate the course when you can.